Okay, hopefully this live will work better. Sorry, I had just because my internet connection is set up. Hello, everyone. So I'm going to have a bunch of people sort of diving into this chat right now. But this is basically kind of to answer some questions, since we are in Pride Month and since Hell's Bells came out recently, about Sallie May, my involvement in the process of writing Hell's Bells. I wanted to do like a quick Q&A for anyone who is interested in any questions having to do with Hell's Bells, and to kind of just talk a little bit about my process, which is a completely legal thing to do. Those sirens are not for me. Anyway, there's so many things to talk about with Sallie May and my involvement in the show and all of that. So I just wanted to go through a couple of the quick ones that I am asked on a regular basis. So first and foremost, a lot of people ask me how I got the role. So the role was not an audition for me. I am extremely honored that Viv and I were friends before she went through the casting process. She knew me from a lot of the work that I had done in the past on camera. Most of my work is all on camera. I've done very little voice acting roles. Almost everything of mine is on camera. I just wrapped, literally today, my very first film that I'm starring in. You can see me in Class Acts with Brandon Rogers, and then a whole bunch of different movies in which I play demons. So I've been a demon in a number of different horror films and sci-fi films, dark fantasy films, like all of that stuff. So, she knew me from acting work having to do with like comedy, horror, and demons. So she knew what she wanted me in the show. I didn't know what she wanted me to do yet. But Sallie May was a direct offer. She came to me and said that she had a sister of her character Millie that she was interested in me portraying, and that her sister was trans, so she definitely wanted a trans actress to play her and had me in mind for it. So when I dropped into Sallie May, that was a role that was primed for me. Viv already knew I was playing the role, and I got to just roll into it knowing that there was no expectation of anything else she was looking for but me to voice the character. So I got to have fun with it. I got to find the Southern accent that came along with the character, and it's extremely addicting to talking now, so I can't actually stop it when I get excited because it's just so much goddamn fun. And I fell in love with her. I absolutely fell in love with the character. The fans clearly did as well, because when we started out, we kind of had a test run of a small amount of merchandise with her. It was a small amount of merch to start with, and it sold really well because a lot of people really fucking liked her. So the first merch we sold was like just her head as a pin, and we sold a t-shirt that had her leaning against the fence, and that was the first kind of test launch for her. They sold really well, so that told us that people really liked Sallie May and wanted merch of hers. So the next stuff that we created for her, because the next merch sale after we realized, hey, people want more Sallie stuff, was Valentine's Day. Which if you know the show and you know the Valentine's Day stuff we put out, the Valentine's Day stuff is sexy. It is pinup stuff. It is like, we really go hard on it. We really show off, like, our show is a very sexy show. We have everything from succubuses to the embodiment of lust and everything in between. It is a very sexually charged show. We warn you about that at the beginning of every fucking episode. So, along with every other character in the show, Sallie May got a really sexy acrylic standee and game mat out of it. I have the standee right here. Let me show you this, because this is one of my favorite pieces of merch here. So we got this standee, which I'm fucking in love with. I do not have the game mat because my wonderful roommate stole it from me because she liked it enough that I let her keep it for her computer. So when they were making this merchandise, they were kind enough to consult me again, which they've done many times on the creative for Sallie May. And they asked me, straight up, it's like, look, so all of our characters are very scantily clad in this. They're all wearing lingerie. They're all wearing like these sexy sort of outfits. And in that, we see the front of Sallie's panties. Like, we see, like, with every other female character on the show, we see between her legs. And initially, the initial design they had was her being very flat at the fronts, like all the other femme characters on the show. They asked me if that was okay with me or if I would make a change. And I did. For a lot of reasons. For me, and I can't emphasize this enough. For me, this is not the experience of all trans women, but for me, I don't have bottom dysphoria. I do not have shame about that, and that is how I would look in this outfit. It's how I would fucking look. I don't tuck. I don't do that shit. That is not something that I like, and I also am very adamant that trans women should not feel this intense pressure to hide that they're trans. I do not have any shame about that. I very much like that part of my anatomy. I have no problem with it at all. So there is this expectation, especially when you're thinking of like sexy trans women or attractive trans women, that attractiveness is in direct relation to how much you erase that they're trans. It is all about like how quote unquote passing a trans woman is. And I think that's fucking bullshit. I fucking hate that because number one, it implies that every single cis woman in the world is more attractive than any trans woman, which isn't fucking true. Trans women are hot as fuck. But also that anything having to do with trans identity is unattractive, which we know isn't. Like, thankfully, we're getting to a point right now where we have all this great representation of gorgeous trans people in media and sexy trans people in media, and that's becoming more popular. But, you know, something to keep in mind about me, I didn't come out recently. I came out as trans in 2009. And when I came out in 2009, there were so few trans people around me or in any of the circles that I rolled in that I didn't have another conversation with another trans woman until 3 years into me being out. That's how long it took for me to actually meet another trans woman that I genuinely became friends with and have a conversation with her, because most of us weren't out. None of my friends, none of my close friends who I hang out with were anywhere close to being out yet. In 2009, when I was like going out to clubs and stuff and like presenting femme, it was very rare. And something that kind of kept me from being more public and was kind of a sense of kind of, you know, a little bit of shaming for me was that I did meet a couple trans people. I didn't have long conversations with them. But one of the things that was very emphasized for me was that if you don't have deep dysphoria about that part of yourself, and even more so, if you're not trying to hide that you are trans in every way you can, if your goal is not to go completely stealth and hide the fact that you're transgender, then you're not trans enough. That was what was instilled in me when I first came out. And that was devastating for me because I didn't feel that need to be stealth. I didn't feel that need to hide that I'm transgender. I love it. I actually love being trans. I think it's really cool. I like who I am. And for me, I want to be trans representation that's genuinely proud of being trans, not in spite of it. So for a lot of this merchandise that often gets called fetishizing for Sallie or whatever, like the people want to make it to be like objectifying or fetishizing. Like, number one, the first time we see this is along with every other character on the show. Every other character on the show got to have sexy merchandise that showed their character being body confident. And it felt like for people who were upset that I encouraged merchandise like this, which I do, that the other options on the table were, number one, she's had bottom surgery. Number two, she tucks to hide that she's trans and has that part of her anatomy. Or three, not include her at all. And I think all those are terrible options compared to just her being confident and sexy in her body. And here's the thing. The merch sells. It all sold really well. And I go to these conventions and I sign a lot of it. A lot of people bring me their playmats. A lot of people bring me their acrylic standees. And you know who brings me these acrylic standees to sign? You know who brings me these game mats and posters to sign? Trans women and non-binary people and trans guys. Basically, a lot of people under the trans spectrum who see that kind of body confidence coming from a trans character and make them, it makes them feel confident and more outgoing. I've seen that, and it's been beautiful. I've met a number of people in the fandom who have told me that they came out because they saw Sallie, and Sallie was cool, and it made them feel cool. And that's all I could have wanted for this character. And I've cried when people have told me that, because I see what a positive effect this show has had on their life in a way that some people say your show has changed my life. And then I look at these people and I'm like, oh, wow, no, it actually has. Like, representation like this is so important that there have been people I've met who have transitioned because they just saw one representation that made them feel not cool in spite of being trans, but because of it. And that's all I want for the characters that I play. We've produced a lot more merchandise of Sallie May since then. There are a lot of chibi versions of her. There are a lot of on-model versions of her. And every year for Valentine's Day, like every other character, she gets some sexy Valentine's Day merch. And when we do summer collections and things like that, if she's in a bikini and that part of her is being shown, it's just there. Because it's not shameful and it's not something to hide. I don't hide it. I don't hide it when I go out. I feel confident about it, and I don't give a fuck what transphobic people think. I think we've all learned at this point right now that if somebody is transphobic, it doesn't care how many surgeries you have, it doesn't matter how much you pass, you're gonna get the same amount of hatred from them. The most passable, like quote-unquote passable, cis-looking person with every surgery under the sun will still be demonized by these bigoted right-wing people. So I make no effort whatsoever to appease them. But, I say this, and it's important that I say it, because I've had people online call Viv transphobic. I've had people online call some of the artists who I've worked with to create this merchandise transphobic for just allowing Sallie May's body to look the way it does. And fuck you. Because I worked with them directly on this, and that decision came from a trans girl. And I also understand that that is something that not every trans person is going to like. I have seen comments from trans people saying that it makes them uncomfortable, that they don't like it, and I do understand where you're coming from. I understand completely where you are coming from. But what I cannot express enough is that no trans person is a representation of all transgender people. I am absolutely not. And you know what? Before the last few years, there was trans representation in media, and I identified with none of it. Because it was all trans women who wanted to be stealth, who felt intense dysphoria that just made them never want to acknowledge being transgender. And that was important representation for a lot of people. But it wasn't for me. And I felt very alone. And I felt very... I don't know if dysphoric is the right word, but I felt very alone in the fact that I had no representation that I identified with. Because that was representation for someone else. So the most I can do is do something that is authentic to me in my experience, and hopefully people find some comfort in it. That's all I can hope for. Because if I were doing representation for someone else and it didn't feel genuine to me, then that wouldn't be authentic and it wouldn't be real. And I can say for this show, Viv, Adam Nalen, Brandon Rogers, Sky Henwood, Sam Miller, everyone who's been involved in making this show, who's in the leadership positions they are, have been so encouraging to me to take a creative role in Sallie May's story, her design, all of these different elements that go into her character, because they've turned to me and they're like, look, we're not trans femme. And even though I'm not representation for all trans people, and this character isn't representation for all trans people, it is representation of my experience. And that's all I can express in this. So getting into Hell's Bells, when the shorts were started, Adam and I went out to lunch, and Adam told me that he and Viv had discussed it. And, you know, at this point, I'd already been consulting a lot on Sallie May and the show. They asked me if I'd be interested in writing a short for the show. And I was beyond touched, I was beyond honored, and beyond excited, because I think about this character so much. I love Sallie. She is one of my favorite characters that I've ever had the pleasure of playing. I mean, it doesn't matter what I do in my career, Sallie May is going to be like, have this permanent major place in my heart. And the first thing that came to mind for the shorts was this idea that when we see Sallie and Millie together, the only time we saw them together, it was a funny moment, but it was a snarky moment. Oh my God, you co-wrote it. I wrote it. I wrote it solo, actually. I did consult with Viv and Adam on making sure that it didn't kind of mess with any canon that they were writing, but I wrote it. And my idea was that this was a story that I wanted to tell to really establish what Sallie May and Millie's relationship was really like. Because we actually have a lot more stories that we're telling with Sallie and Millie. And that first interaction we had with them wasn't accurate to what their relationship was like. They're extremely close. They are very, very close as sisters. But as a lot of us discover when we're adults, when we grow up and we move, we go to college, we get jobs, these close relationships we have when we're kids sometimes end up drifting apart from one another. And nothing happened during those that caused that to happen. Just life gets busy and life happens. So I had this idea that I really wanted Sallie, who spends most of her time in Rathring with her family, finally going and visiting Millie, who moved to the city after living in Rath with her. And I wanted to start the short by having a fun day in the city with them. We rarely get these slice of life things of just the characters out enjoying themselves with no antagonist, no mission, just them enjoying themselves. I really wanted to give Sallie a new look because if you noticed in Harvest Moon, Millie, Moxie, Blitz, Luna, they all have like their Rathring looks. They're not dressed in their normal clothing. They're dressed in their Rathring looks. Logically for me, if Sallie's going to come to the city, like what we see her in, I love her outfit, but you know, her outfit is very cute. It's very femme. I love her crop top. I love her cutoffs and her ripped tights and everything, but these are her work clothes. This is the clothing that she wears on the ranch when she's carrying hay bales around and tending to the hell hogs and all that. That's her work clothes. So I wanted to give her something that worked a little bit more to like running around the city with her sister. So that montage was like, let's throw Sallie May in a proper city look. Which she selected herself. Like, she goes through several different outfits, but the one she lands on was one that she felt confident in, which I think you can tell by the animation. Like, Sallie finds this outfit, she fucking loves it, she tries 2 other outfits, just thinking, like, maybe this one. But at the end of the day, like, Sallie selected her outfit. Like, Millie was there to offer sort of sisterly encouragement in her trying a new style. But this was about Sallie finding, like, oh, like, I'm out of work mode. Let's get into, city life. Let me try a different style if we're going out and like exploring the city together. So that was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to like do that. I did not design the outfit. I wrote in the script like kind of some descriptions of what I was thinking about, but that was designed by our character designer, Callus, who's incredible. And then Viv had notes on it, and then I had a few different options to look at. But Callus is a friend of mine. She's a total sweetheart. She's super talented. And yes, I would say that Sallie's outfit looks a lot like something I would wear, which made the cosplay very fucking easy. And then, they get into a very deep heart-to-heart at the end of the episode because, I was reflecting a lot on my relationship with my own siblings in that. I'm busier right now than I've ever been in my life. And my brother only lives not too far from me, but I don't see him enough. I'm the oldest of 3. And my sister lives in Hawaii, which is pretty far from me in California. So I don't get to see my siblings a lot. And we didn't have a fight. Nothing bad happened. But life ends up happening in these big ways. And you get busy. You do adult stuff. You go on and, like, you know, in Millie's case, she got married. She got a big career. She switched her life around a lot. And she loves her sister. But with everything going on, she didn't realize how much time had passed. Whereas for Sallie, not a lot has happened that changed in her life. So Sallie was feeling the loss a lot more and was a lot more cognizant of Millie being gone and out of her life. So that moment that I had on the rooftop for me when I was writing it was after they had spent a full day together. It clicked in both of their heads. Wow, this is something that we used to do all the time and something that I really, really missed. And by the end of it, they realize, you know, there's a little bit of an argument, a little bit of tension, but they realize that that was neither of their faults and something that both of them have to work on together. If they want to keep that relationship going, if they want to be there for each other, then it's an effort that has to be made on both parts. And that opens it up a lot because we are going to see Sallie more in the show. We're going to see all of Millie's family in the show again. And that's following this when they've made that promise to each other. So, you know, a lot of people have, like, had different feelings on it, on how they felt about the shorts, how they feel about Sallie. But at the end of the day, that short meant a lot to me. It was very, very emotionally important to me. It came from a very real place. It came from my experience, not just as a sister, but how I feel about this character and how much I love this character and how much I love Millie. I loved writing for Millie too. I loved writing for Moxie at the end. I loved that little moment with Moxie at the very end where Moxie sees the two of them together and realizes this isn't about him. This is about, this is about his wife and her sister, and he can immediately see this is a moment that doesn't need to involve me, and this is something that they clearly really need. So, there's a lot of elements to like Sallie for me that mean a lot to me. But something that I cannot stress enough, because unfortunately I've seen some things online where people have, in the most bizarre sense, because remember, like, I don't just work for Viv. Viv's one of my best friends. If you haven't been able to tell by all the things that Viv and I do together, like, Viv is surrounded by a circle of her very close friends who were there before the show. And for me, seeing a lot of people use things that I came up with, like my creative involvement in this character, my form of representation that is authentic to me, that is very real to me, that comes from a real place for me to want to put out there creatively. For them to take that and turn it into something that they would call transphobic, or to say that this is in some way bad faith or is in some way a negative that Viv put out there, is not just insane, but offensive to me. I read some of it today, and it's like, it erases my contributions to the character. It erases my work as a trans woman in this genre, and erases a lot of my experience. It erases my experience as a trans woman, because that is what I've instilled in this character. When I'm playing Sallie, I'm playing it in the only way that I know how to play. And that is with my experience as a trans girl, with the life that I've had. And that is where the writing comes from. That is where these decisions come from. Everything from the merchandise to the way that the show is written, to how I present this character, the prints that I make, that I work with the artist on, the merchandise that I come up with for the show, all of that comes from a place of truly lived experience. And as I've said, it's not an experience that every trans woman's going to identify with. A lot have, and a lot of them have come and told me at conventions directly. And when I sign my prints, when I make these prints out to people, more often than not, it's to somebody who's under the transgender umbrella. and I have markers put aside for them. I have pastel pink, blue, and white markers that I use to draw a trans flag whenever it is asked for. Because the majority of the fans of Sallie May are people who love that character for a reason. So, yeah, it means a lot to me. The character means a lot to me. And I'm putting this video out there because there's been a lot of arguments and a lot of assumptions made about intentions behind the show and needing, things taken without context. And again, what I can't express enough is that I am forever grateful to Viv and the whole team for allowing me to have as much inclusion on Sallie May's character as I do. And there will be more of her. A lot of people ask for a lot of her, but what I can't, I love my character, but she's not a main character. She is one of the side characters on the show, a beloved one, but she's not Blitz and Stolas. That is what the story is right now. She is the sister of one of the employees of IMP. Millie is a main character. Sallie is her sister. So she's great for the, she's great for the shorts and great for these little stories, but right now, at this point in time, she doesn't know Stolas, and she doesn't really have a connection with Blitz, so a lot of people being like, oh, she should be in an entire episode. Those times will come, and there will be stories that she will be involved in, but I'm very grateful for what I've already gotten to do with her. And that's it. I think that, I wanted to put this out there to just let people know what this character means to me and my journey with this character and where my decisions for Sallie May come from, and just have it on video of me talking about this, because I do, when I see things get taken out of context, when I see people try to use creative decisions that I've made to demonize somebody who's one of my best friends, it upsets me a lot. It upsets me on multiple levels, but more than anything else, it feels extremely invalidating to my entire experience that I've brought into this character. And that's especially fucked up this month. So it is very important to me that I put this out there and you all know where these creative choices for Sallie May come from. Love you all so much. I don't want to make this video too long, but wanted to put that out there to give you a little insight. And yeah, there's still a lot more to find out about this character. There's still a lot more of her to come. So I hope you love her. I hope you're excited for more Sallie May. I'm sure excited about the stuff I've already recorded. I'm excited about the talks I've had with Viv and the team of where the character is going. There is so much coming for my girl. And I'm excited for you all to see and be on that journey with me. So, love you all. Again, happy Pride Month. And, leave a comment on the video.